Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Briefing 5P 2020, our second day. I'm Richard Brent, the Editor-in-Chief of Briefing. You may well have seen me yesterday. I'm delighted to have you back again for this session, which is all around using collaboration tools to maximize profitability and drive process improvement within remote teams. I mentioned at the outset yesterday that 5P is all around creating joined up legal businesses, and I think this session definitely includes at least 4 of the 5 Ps. In particular, we're talking about Microsoft Teams. This is going to be quite a practical session, taking you through something of a day in the life of a law firm, using Microsoft Teams specifically as a collaboration tool. We're going to look at how Teams help firms to embed and drive process for distributed working, of course, as well as potentially developing internal and indeed external chat channels to deliver more resilient ways of working. We would like to be as interactive as possible, so please do ask any questions that you have as our speakers are taking you through that journey. And without further ado, I will introduce them both. We have Vinnie Scarinci, who is the Vice President of Legal Practice at sa.global, our partner for this session this morning. Vinnie is responsible for partnering with law firms at the highest level to advise on strategies and technologies, both to optimize growth and to drive efficiencies. He's been in the legal industry for over 15 years, including spells at Thomson Reuters and indeed Microsoft. And Vinnie is joined by Lucy Nigrelli, who is a solution consultant with sa.global. She's a very experienced solutions architect, responsible primarily for development and support of ERP and practice management systems throughout her career. She's been in the legal industry for over 30 years, she says, and including during that time worked at LexisNexis and back in the day, Axia Systems. So thank you very much to Lucy and to Vinnie for being with us. And I'm going to, first off, hand over to Vinnie.
Hey, thanks so much, Richard. Appreciate the introduction. So give me 1 second here and I will start to share my slide.
Just while you're doing that, Vinnie, I'll just mention to people watching to ask their questions in the chat, of course, at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, and let me know when you can see our introductory slide here.
I absolutely can.
Wonderful, thanks so much. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I'm Vinnie Scarinci, the Vice President of the Legal Practice over here at sa.global. For those of you who may not know sa.global, we are a full service provider of the Microsoft products. So we offer professional services, managed services, as well as a full line of applications designed specifically for the legal vertical. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set us up with the agenda, make sure everybody's on the same page here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a brief introduction on the rise of Teams in 2020. I'm going to kick over to my partner in crime, Lucy, who's going to walk us through how Teams works for fee earners, trying to accomplish more inside of Teams, making Teams more proactive. And I think this bit, hopefully everybody finds this one really interesting. She has something in store here that's really kind of non-traditional as far as Teams goes, a way to make it interactive both for your attorneys and the back office staff. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up with some practical takeaways. And those practical takeaways are pretty amazing, I have to say. Lucy and I were doing the dry run on this, and she gave me a couple of tips that I had no idea Teams could even do. So those will be a couple of tips and tricks that you guys can walk away with today and then use them in your next Teams meeting. As part of the session today, we're going to do some polling. So if you have your mobile device handy, please pick that up. We're going to do, you can do polling 2 different ways. One is by text, and you can see the number there, the 074 number. If you want to go ahead and text Vinnie S781, it will actually join the session right now. And then when I open up the polling questions, you just have to type in your answer, a simple letter or word when I put them up on the screen, and we'll see real-time results from everybody in the session here today. Likewise, if you want to toggle over to a web browser, you can see the pollev.com/Vinnie781, and you can join it. And when I'm on each of the slides, what you'll see is that little gray box at the bottom. So it's a friendly little reminder on how to join. Real easy. I've done this plenty of times live. I will admit it's my first time doing it over a web conference. So we'll go ahead and give that a try right now. So let's fire up the polling. And you can see what technology is your firm using for collaboration. So you can see as people are putting in their answers, we're seeing a lot of Teams users. Not surprised one bit when you're doing a session on Microsoft Teams, ironically in a Zoom meeting of all places, but you can see that we do have a large number of our audience being Microsoft Teams folks. So not surprising. So fantastic. I appreciate the interaction, and we'll have one more of these a little bit later in the presentation. So let me do a little background on Teams. So Microsoft Teams was introduced in November of 2016. And you can see, as this graph indicates, it's really taken off. Of course, back in 2019, 13 million users, that not too shabby. Microsoft was pretty excited about that performance as far as Teams goes in the marketplace. But today we just recently hit 115 million users. So when you look at that, that's actually the equivalent of everybody in the UK and everybody in Italy joining a Microsoft Teams meeting, right? Just tremendous amount of users that they have on that platform. And when you think about Microsoft, they've had a tremendous number of really successful products, over their history. And Microsoft Teams has actually become one of their most successful products ever. So it's from adoption and sales, and it's really just taken off as far as adoption. Of course, unfortunately, the pandemic has helped its growth quite a bit, but I think this type of technology was ready to kind of break out anyway. So recently I attended the Microsoft Ignite conference. And for those of you who don't know Ignite, it is sort of Microsoft's technical conference. So your IT folks probably go there. Your more technical power users tend to go there. And I came across this stat, which I thought was fantastic. I think this really embraces kind of the way the lawyers spend their day. It's during the course of the business day, users spend about average of 60% of their time in Office or in a web browser. And that number jumps up to 90% when they're leveraging Microsoft Teams. So you can see that people really spend a tremendous amount of their day inside of these Microsoft products. So maximizing how people spend their day is, of course, top of mind for a lot of the people that are investing in these technologies and looking to make sure that the lawyers spend more of their time on kind of that billable work. When Microsoft built Teams, they had kind of three pillars that they were kind of designing the platform around. One was staying connected. So that's sort of the video and telephone pieces of the application. Next was the collaboration tools. And lastly, simplifying of processes. So I think as the legal industry, I think we've done a really good job at staying connected, right? Adopting these technologies in these changing times to make sure that we're able to make our phone calls, have our meetings, and we've done a really good job with that. As far as collaborating, I think we're only in the early days as far as leveraging what these tools can do as far as collaboration. So for the legal vertical, I'm just going to give us a yellow check mark. I think this time next year, we'll probably be at a solid green check mark, if not a check plus, right? We'll be well underway as far as collaborating with our clients and our peers and really taking Teams to a whole new level. And then lastly, which is the simplifying of the processes. And for the legal vertical, I'm going to give us a red X today. And I just feel like we really haven't done a great job at really kind of connecting Microsoft Teams into our day-by-day process. And that's going to be sort of the focus point around what Lucy's going to talk about today. So this is another great quote from Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. And he said, meetings are important, but they're very transactional, right? There's a lot of stuff that happens before the meeting. There's a lot that happens after the meeting. And it's kind of the way we stitch that information together is where Microsoft 365 and the Teams platform really stand out. And to me, this kind of really embodies a lot of the things that we're doing over here at SA Global and a lot of the things that Lucy is going to showcase as we kind of go through our section on Teams here today. So what I'm going to do is I got a couple screen grabs of Microsoft Teams, and I'm going to start off by showing us really what happened behind the curtain before Lucy even shows it. So hopefully this looks familiar. You'll see that we have kind of the connecting tools up here. We have the chat, we have the calendar, we have the ability to make the calls. We're not going to spend our time here today. We think that everybody has some of the basics of that piece down. What we're going to focus in on is really the collaboration components, and then of course the simplifying of processes. So if you're looking at this menu bar in Microsoft Teams and you say to yourself, hey, that looks a little bit different than what mine looks like. There's obviously a lot more icons there. There's a lot more than the way I leverage Teams. Let me kind of pull back the curtain on how I got those applications in there. So you see those three little dots down there. If you click on that, it will open up the menu bar. And there is a whole ecosystem of Microsoft Teams applications available. And by clicking on that button, you'll be able to start to see some of those. Or if you click on the application button down at the very bottom, you can actually see the full library of what is available. I will say that, a little caveat to this is that it is all security based. So if your IT team has shut this off, you may see less, you may see more, kind of depending on what they've decided to show to you guys as far as an end user. But Microsoft has three types of applications that are available inside of Teams like this. So they have applications for Microsoft themselves. And inside this screenshot, you can see Microsoft Flow. That's one of the tools from Microsoft that allows you to essentially build workflows through Microsoft Teams and simplify processes. So that's a great one. If you're not familiar with that one, it certainly is one I would recommend that you check out. The second type of application are third-party applications. So you can see a lot of different vendors have applications here. These are a little bit more on, I'll say the personal side, but as you go through the library, you'll see a lot of names and companies that you probably recognize. I know a lot of the legal vendors are spending their time and energy building applications to embed in Teams. One of the most notable in here, I think, is NetDocs. So they've added a Teams component so you can get at the NetDocs components directly through this interface too. So, and then the last one, which is what we've created, is a line of business application, which is essentially a custom application that allows you to build out unique workflows, unique functionality, and load it into the Microsoft Teams platform. And you see right on the screen there, you have the ability to submit your application to be part of the catalog, or you can upload a custom application right into this interface, which is fantastic for third-party vendors like ourselves, where we can go in and add these into Teams, or your team or your IT team may go in and build these themselves and add them into the Microsoft Teams platform to increase your overall productivity too. So with that said, I got one more polling question for you, and then we will start our transition over to Lucy. So Lucy can start to get to ready in the background, but this is a word cloud. So as you go in and add in your words, it will actually build out a little bit of a cloud here so we can get some feedback from the audience. But please go ahead and type in, what is the word or words that would best describe your firm's adoption of the collaboration tools before COVID. So great, we got poor, we got average, manual. I really appreciate the feedback. This is fantastic. So I think we can see that largely as an industry, we were probably at our infancy. And I think, everybody's grown very quickly as far as these types of technologies. And as an industry, I think it's only going to get better. So with that said, I appreciate the feedback, and I'm going to hand things over to Lucy as we start to go through the heart of the presentation. Lucy, over to you.
Thank you, Vinnie. I don't think I'm actually sharing.
Yep, we can see it.
Fabulous.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Vinnie. That was great. And a very good morning to you all who are on the call. In this session, I'm going to demonstrate some of the functionality that Vinnie's been talking about and how we've achieved that by extending Microsoft Teams with a custom app. And today I've chosen 3 different examples to walk you through. The 3 examples that I'm going to use are reviewing the embedded web content that you can surface within Microsoft Teams. We're then going to have some fun with a chat bot functionality, and I'll show you how the bot can surface data in Microsoft Teams. And then we'll finish up that particular session by looking at some examples of the integration of the Power Platform in Teams and include some examples of the Power Apps and Power BI capabilities. So let's start with the embedded web content within Teams. I'm sure the screen that you're currently viewing, or I'm currently presenting to you, is a very familiar screen to you. So on the left-hand side, I have my list of teams and my channels, and those are the particular channels and teams that I'm actually a current member of. Now, the matters that you just see displayed here on the left-hand side, these matters are auto-generated from Evergreen, and they're auto-generated as the